evening, everyone. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand. I'm going to reconvene a public meeting. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'd like to ask everyone to remain standing, please. Ask for a moment of silence. We had a staff faculty member who passed away, Ms. Virginia Javassi. I'd also like everyone to thank and keep in their prayers and thoughts 17 people who were affected at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School down in Florida, and also the several that are critically wounded. Thank you. Okay, at this time we'll call for reports to the Board of Education. We'll start with our student representatives, the President, Mr. Leo Dario Gupta, and Ms. Morgan Cole.
On January 21st, kids dressed up as their favorite Disney characters and participated in activities at the student government's annual event at the high school, Elvie Gets Frozen. It was a huge success for the children, school, and community. On the note of helping others and fundraising, the Interact Club is collecting manufacturing coupons for veterans, and the blood drive is at the high school on March 2nd. The Elvie Jesters will be performing Les Miserables on March 16th and 17th at 7:30 and on March 18th at 2. Come watch this ambitious production. It's sure to be a hit. The Drug Abuse Prevention Forum is being held on March 1st at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium by Dr. Stephen Dewey, an expert in the field. All community members are invited and parents are encouraged to bring their children. The high school lip sync event was postponed to March 27th due to scheduling conflicts. Green and White Night was supposed to be on Tuesday, February 13th, but is also being rescheduled. We will keep you posted.
The Fall and Winter Sports Award Ceremony is on February 28th. Girls and boys varsity basketball are having a great season and made it to the playoffs. Varsity wrestling won counties. They were named Division 2. For the 7th year in a row, they took first place at the Cold Spring Harbor Invitational. Points ranged from about 1 to 6 points, and we got over 207 points, which is really good. There was over 9 people that were named Fall County, and wrestlers Jack Ward and Billy O'Brien are both headed to the state championship in Albany. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you for your reports tonight. Okay, so we're going to hand over the mic now to the Superintendent of Schools for the Superintendent's Report, Dr. Hunterman.
So, because of the tragedy in Florida, that just compounds all the other tragedies we've had, the faculty has reviewed the security measures. There have been some changes made that certainly we would never announce in public, and we're really vigilant with that. The same way that I want to thank faculty, the staff, because we've devoted a great deal of time to talking about sanitizing the facilities. We're really fortunate that our absentee levels are pretty consistent with last year, and in fact in some schools are actually lower, but obviously one case is troubling for a particular family or staff member. But we've been really vigilant because we want to keep it very low. I know some neighboring districts have tremendous spikes in absenteeism and confirmed incidents of the flu, and thank goodness so far we've been fortunate. So we will continue to do that. Moving along. So our kids are just exceptional constantly. And now the middle school has distinguished itself at a national level. And Julie, I know you have to be here somewhere. There she is. Just like you sit all the way in the back. Yes, so if you want to come up and introduce your superstars, that would be just great. Tony, is your mic work? Maybe you can give it to Julie.
Thank you for inviting us to be here. These are my students, Nicole Tiglius, Samantha Latato, and Dominic Marone. 3 other students, Trinity Benstock, Nish Cascato, and Elizabeth Roselli couldn't be here tonight. We won the Lexus Eco Challenge. We were one of 16 teams nationally to win the competition. These kids came up with an environmental. Hello? Okay, that's better. Do you want me to introduce them again, or are we okay? Okay. Sorry.
They won't be able to record it, yeah.
This is Nicole Tiglius, Samantha Latato, Dominic Marone, and 3 other members of our team couldn't be here tonight: Elizabeth Grisalfi, Trinity Benstock, and Nish Cascato. So we were one of 16 teams to win the first level of the competition, the Lexus Eco Challenge. They came up with an environmental issue they wanted to tackle, which was climate change. And they developed an action plan and put it into action. And they did a 15-slide PowerPoint presentation, which they entered into the competition. And so we were chosen. They won as a team $10,000. The school's going to get $2,000 of that. And then they're sending me a check for $1,000, and the kids are splitting up $7,000. And we're working currently on the next stage of the national level of the competition, which is due March 5th. And so we're submitting another PowerPoint. The kids have written all the legislators in Nassau County. We're trying to get them to implement a plastic bag law like they have in Suffolk County now. We're also going to reach out to the state legislators because they're trying to combat climate change, and plastic has a huge carbon footprint. We have a Twitter account, we have an Instagram. What else, you guys? Well, we have a website also, because we're trying to, the second stage of the competition, we need to make a more national message. So they're working hard. They had a bake sale today, and all the money that we earn from recycling and bake sales we're sending to Puerto Rico for hurricane relief. So hopefully we'll do okay in the national competition, but this was a great honor, and thank you for having us.
Ms. Feldman, we want to congratulate you and your students, and we wish you the best. Congratulations, guys. Yeah.
Julie, let me make a suggestion. Can you forward whatever it is that the kids have sent to the legislators? I am getting telepathic waves from the board that they will reinforce it, okay? And I have no doubt that the parent council will as well, and maybe some of the faculty will do that too. So then you can just bombard them.
To you that
Yeah, that's fine, and I'll make sure to distribute it to everybody.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Going to move into the board reports. Last is our report from the audit committee. Trustee Bruno.
The audit committee met a few weeks ago, and we met with the internal auditor, who, as you know, we have two different auditing firms, a claims auditing firm, an internal auditor, and an external auditor. And we set the parameters of what they're going to audit this year. And it's confidential, so I can't really delve into that. But they've done their field work, I believe, last week, and they'll have a report later in the year.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the Budget and Finance Committee. Trustee Doltato.
The Budget and Finance Committee met last week, and we're working with everybody on the board on how we're going to get the money to do some projects for the next coming years, and I think we're close to making a decision, and hopefully by next meeting we'll explain everything what we're going to do. But that's about what we've done this week. Thank you.
Okay.
And can you get one of the custodians to come up and fix one of these?
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
I'm trying, and Roger said that you're getting static, so that the microphones that aren't working, the ones that aren't working should be turned off. And so at least you'll have a microphone that works.
You have one?
All right, we'll go to the Facilities Committee. The Facilities Committee met last on January the 29th. It was a Monday over at Central Office. Since then, we had a Facilities Forum on Thursday, February the 1st, where we took feedback and suggestions from our community. And tonight, under new business, we do have some priorities we want to discuss and to look to get more information from H2M, and additionally look to start making application to New York State Department of Education to get these jobs ready to go once we get the approval and the funding. Nothing more on the Facilities Committee. We'll go to the Policy Committee. Trustee Henris.
Thank you. The Policy Committee met last on January 17th with Anna Hunderfund, Susan Hammerschmidt, and Ken Packard. We also had Jessica Goldstein call in. She's with the Policy Committee for New York State School Boards. Several meetings ago, we had made a recommendation to the board to accept or to consider the Internet Policy Services and License Agreement. In essence, that would allow us to post our policy book online, make it accessible. From that recommendation, we actually came up with several questions that we wanted some clarity on, so we held that second meeting before continuing. At this point, what we did in our meeting was we had researched what other school districts are doing on Long Island, how this policy service would look and how user-friendly it was. We had a list of criteria that we wanted it to be able to do. And we have since determined that the school board's e-policy is really the best way for us to go, and that is the recommendation from the committee.
Thank you very much. Public Relations and Communications Committee. Trustee Steele.
Thank you. Okay, so the Public Relations and Communications Committee met on February 7th, that was last week, Wednesday, at 6 o'clock. In attendance was Brian Nolan, President of the Board of Education. Carrie Ann Carlstrom, Vice President of the Board of Education, myself, and Dr. Anna Underfund, and Pam Kaplan. Before I begin, I would like to really thank Pam Kaplan. Stand up. She laid out an incredible agenda, and we got together and worked hard, so thank you, Pam. Some of the things that we heard about in the past few meetings, including the Public Budget Forum 1 and Facilities Forum, was that there was a lot of feedback about how we as a board and as a district communicate. And the first of which we discussed were drop-down menus on the website, particularly for when the new website launches. And we got feedback first from Dr. Hunderfund reaching out to students, staff, faculty, administrators, and the Coordinated Parents Council to kind of get some feedback about what people would like to see on the website and make it more accessible. And some of the things that we heard about were definitely lab and resource schedules, health office and services, making that more accessible. We discussed some options about making health information more aware to the community, and we discussed potentially putting it under, and combining it with athletics, so student health and athletics. We also discussed about how to get folks to really use the parent portal and use it well. So launching an instruction manual, which is in the works and would be noted more clearly for families and teachers in how to communicate with families, how to use the portal. There was also addressed about having a new menu for the pupil personnel services. We agreed that was a great idea, and to include that underneath the Department of Programs menu, but with the notation of special education services. We took in another suggestion for parents, including the parent portal as mentioned before, but also about how to use Naviance and information and how to access Naviance if you forget your password, your username, etc. And all of that totally doable and making that more clear to the public. But we would like to remind everybody that Naviance is accessible under guidance, under the Departments and Programs menu. Again, it came from the community about accessing the new webpage when it is launched, and also from several board members. And we talked to Pam, and Pam said it's definitely doable to have an accessible guide on the website in other languages if possible too. She's going to research some options about how to launch that guide and how to use the new webpage. Another thing that came up was the application. It's a great tool, but we just found out that 356 devices, individual devices, have this. We want more people to have it, so everybody here, I know there's not too many, but we would like everyone to have the application and to use it. It's a great function. Right now, if you go into the application, the notifications say, the push notifications, so whenever you get anything that pops up on your phone, it says it's on, but that's actually not true. We do not have notifications going out to mobile devices right now. The board, we've discussed this in the past, as well as the committee recommended turning push notifications on, and in doing so, to not alarm folks when the notifications go on, we'll be doing it out in a drawn-out process so that way people will know exactly what's going on. So there'll be a note in sound waves, as well as flyers and emails that will go out that say, don't panic. Well, not really, but you're going to get notifications through the app, and hopefully that app will help us reach out about budget information. So probably the first notifications you'll get on your phones will be budget meeting or public budget forum. Let's see. We would also like to use that app potentially for athletic events and other school events. Scores would be great to see popping up, especially if you're not available to get to the game or if you're in a meeting. Pam has also said it's going to take time because that is from two distinct different sites, and transferring that data would be an issue, but she is looking into it. And then finally, getting the vote out, raising awareness about the budget. We heard from so many folks about ideas, and some of them were about communicating through local community centers such as libraries or the town halls, local papers, gathering emails of community members, physical flyers, and even electric signage outside of the district buildings. And we talked about all of those, and we mentioned all these possibilities, and Pam noted already that the local papers, the libraries, the town halls, the application, our website, as well as emails within, for folks who have students within the district, and Facebook are all notifying about budget meetings. However, that still leaves a question about outside folks and what to do there. So we're going to push out a postcard. They'll be going out to all district families and households, notifying of all the meetings regarding the budget and Board of Education meetings, and with an announcement about, hey, look, we have this amazing opportunity, amazing school district. Please go onto our website, register your email, so you can get notifications about what's happening in your district, as well as an advertisement encouraging folks to download the application, and there will be directions to do so. Sound waves will be going out to all district residents, letting folks know this is what's happening. Additionally, the signage will be put up, but the question of the electronic board, Dr. Underfund was going to go forward and is still continuing to do so, as well as other administrators, to find out more about whether that's possible based on the locality, zoning, and codes. We don't have a fixed date for the next public relations meeting, but we hope to have one in March. And just as a final note, we really encourage anyone who has any suggestions about how to reach out to you, please let us know. That includes students, faculty, staff, administrators, and community residents. We really want to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This last other reports from the board, I just want to report to the board tonight that we have 2 dates for training. Myself, Dr. Underfund, and Ms. Carlstrom will be attending a mental health summit on March the 15th. And also for your calendars, I'd like you to please reserve April 14th for a board retreat with a guest speaker. I think so. That is a Saturday, correct? Location to be determined. Is there anyone else attending the mental health summit? Just the 3 of us. No. It's not for us. Okay, are there any other reports to be brought before the Board of Education tonight?
I participated in the Health and Wellness Committee. We met on Monday, February 5th, and I was attending as the Board of Education rep. In attendance, it was a very well-attended meeting. We had representatives from the Boys and Girls Club, Locust Valley Library, various parent groups, a student, and several staff and administrators. Our main focus centered around meaningful ways to promote the event that will be happening on March 1st, and it's a community forum presentation by Dr. Stephen Dewey on the effects of drugs on the teen brain. And I hope that everybody in this room will be able to make it and come back with your children, neighbors, anybody. We learned that the Back the Blue Club will be hosting a tournament that day from 4:30 to 6:30. They're calling it Dodge Out Drugs. The club leaders will be encouraging all of their participants and spectators to go to the presentation following the tournament. And the district has invited students and families from neighboring schools, Portland Friends Academy, Blue High Schools. The student government and clubs have been asked to recruit volunteers and post flyers, trying to get the word out to participate. The presentation that he does is just phenomenal. It's hard to describe. I know there'll be a further report on it later. But the committee is working on ways to incentivize attendance. And we also had a student who spoke to us about the presentation for ALS, something that had been done last year, and working on ways to further that presentation and to present the monies raised from their work to the ALS group. The student that helped bring this to our attention advocates yearly down in Washington, D.C. So it's quite nice to hear about it. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Any other reports? Okay. We're going to move into unfinished business. We have discussion items tonight. First one is going to be the effects of substance abuse on the teenage brain update. So we're going to bring the screen down and we're going to relocate. Thank you. relocate down into the audience just in some moment.
I would recommend it.
Good evening, thank you. Lisa and I presented some information on Dr. Stephen Dewey coming to our district a few weeks ago, and during our presentation, there were some really great suggestions based on what we can do to continue to publicize so that as many community members as possible comes out with their children to the forum. So thank you to Ms. Henris, who started by talking about some of those updates. We will be having two presentations. One are the student assemblies that will happen during the school day on February 27th for our middle school and our high school students. And then the other will be our community forum on March 1st in the evening. So since the last meeting, we have done some community outreach to ensure that we have a great audience for Dr. Dewey. One of the things that we've done is invite the headmasters at the local private schools. We have also invited administrators and parent and student leaders at local public schools to the event as well. We have a representative from the Grenville-Baker Boys and Girls Club that sits on our Health and Wellness Committee, and he has advertised this event through the Boys and Girls Club, and he has also offered to send a bus of students and parents to the event. Our local library, so Locust Valley Library and Bayville Library, we had sent flyers to them and they are advertising as well. This information obviously went out to all families and students in grades K to 12. And Mr. Joe Panaccio is having an athletic awards night the night before, and he has offered to present this information to his student athletes and parents and as a way to encourage them to attend the following evening.
So we're also trying to maximize our student participation at the community forum. We figured what better way to do that than to make it really a full day event. Or full afternoon at least. So what we are having first is the Dodge Out Drugs Dodgeball Tournament, which you heard Ms. Henry speak of earlier. It will run from 4:30 to 6:30. The funds that are raised at that tournament will be donated to the Policemen and Firemen's Widows and Children's Benevolent Fund. And from there also, we have some students who have already picked up some of the flyers and they have gone out into the community so that they can be hung up because we are offering service credit to our students. So we are encouraging them to participate the night of, to be the meet and greeters for Dr. Dewey and help as community members do file into the auditorium. We are also encouraging that classes take a little bit of a role here in terms of discussing topics that are raised during the forum and then even potentially offering some
assignments. We know that this is particularly going to happen in the health courses. That night is a no homework night for the entire high school. So another reason why it's a great thing for the students to not only stay after school for some extra credit and go out to the gym and play dodgeball for a little while. We're going to have a dinner for them, and then they can meet up with their parents and they can go into the community forum together. So it can be a whole night of really just working towards trying to process the things that are going to be discussed.
Can you do me a favor? I don't think that middle school is here, but can you ask them to also do a no homework night? Because we know that the onset of substance abuse nationally begins really just before actually the middle school. And so for them to come to this and then have to go home and do homework is going to be unbearable. It's going to be difficult for the older kids, for the littler ones, the younger ones, I should say. It's going to be really impossible. So if you could ask them to please adopt that also, that would be terrific.
Yes, well done. At the actual event itself, the forum at 7 p.m., our SAD Club will also be fundraising, and the funds that they raise there will be used later on in the course of the school year during our regular week. And after the forum, Michelle was able to reach out to Dr. Dewey, and he did give us permission to record the entire presentation. We are going to then be able to post it on the website so that if any teachers wanted to use it as a teaching lesson in their class, they could show snippets of it. Or if any parents or anybody, community members who were unable to attend the event, they then can access it on our website and they'll be able to update themselves with what they missed. So we're really looking forward to it.
Can you call Mr. Fink and tell him that? Because I know he was like the one that recommended it.
With pleasure.
He's like, we'll be thrilled.
Absolutely.
Any questions? Discussion item? Okay, thank you very much.
And they did so much work. I cannot explain to you how much work has gone into this. I mean, they made it look simple. But thank you.
We're going to have the IV waiting update.
That would be Dr. Ward.
Good evening. Very good. Okay, this is a very brief report on responding to trends in student choices, in part prompted by our 5-year self-study required by the IB organization in Wales. One of the findings of that study was that our IB diploma overall percentage is not, where's the, can we make this go down anymore? Is Amy here? Because the current number is key. Okay, so we have several columns here. Obviously, the number of seniors, the number of diploma candidates, and then as a percent, which is actually more important, and then how many diplomas are actually achieved and what percent of the diploma candidates were successful in that year. So if you notice back 2010, 11, and 12, we had a significantly higher percentage of the senior classes as diploma candidates. And now we're down to our lowest in history. Although in 2017 we did have a little bump, which was good. And we also had a relatively high percentage compared to 2 years earlier. It was consistent with 2016, even though we had a higher percentage of candidates. This year we're down to about 12.2%. So why is this happening? Our site-based committee, which consists of parents, students, teachers, and administrators, discussed this at length, and the student feedback especially is very cogent. Kids don't want to take the full diploma because the required extended essay requires them to take a course with us called Junior Research. It's not an IB course. It's a course that was designed by Locust Valley teachers about 12 or 13 years ago in order to facilitate student success on the extended essay. And because it's not an IB course, it was never given any IB weighting. Students feel that in the race for GPA, about 15, Val Sal, college admission, that they quite often would prefer to take a weighted course. And as a result, then they don't want to do the extended essay, and as a result, then they also don't become full IB diploma candidates. They also perceive that the extended essay is too difficult for the average student, even though 96% of them will go on to college and write many of these in their first term at college. The discussion is generally centered upon the fact that here they have support, and then they can be walked through the process, and yet they still try to avoid it. They also decided to take some electives outside the diploma requirements. Quite often students want to take an additional social studies or an additional art or performing art, something like that. As well as some courses that are outside the diploma, such as AP Statistics or AP Calculus, things like that. So, site-based committee's recommendations. Now, this first bullet point has an error, and I apologize for this. I should have noted it, and I did not. What the site-based committee is recommending is that we award IB weighting to the junior research course as an SL course, because it requires work at that level, and it's consistent with the work that is required at TOK, which gets SL weighting, etc. To those in the audience, the honors weighting is 10%, SL weighting is 12.5%, and then HL or higher level courses and AP courses are weighted at 15%. Bonus to the grade, which is a function of really the difficulty of the course, and it reflects the added work the students do. The site-based committee is also unanimous in recommending, and both of these recommendations are unanimous, that the 9th grade students have an honors option for their persuasive writing course. The persuasive writing course was introduced 2 years ago. It's a half-credit alternate day course. Currently, the first 2 years it's been heterogeneously programmed, and everyone on the committee believed that offering an honors option for that course that required a more rigorous research paper would motivate students who have, let's say, good writing skills coming into 9th grade, but then motivating them to take the next step and better prepare them then for a more rigorous writing later on, and give them greater confidence to take the full diploma because they won't be afraid of the extended essay. Also providing evidence of the value of IB diploma. So in one of the presentations that we make, or several of the presentations that we make to parents, we include things like college admission statistics. Many people have argued in the past between AP and IB in terms of college credit being granted, but that's not the real important point. The important point is that IB will help you get into college. Either way, whether you have advanced credit or not, you still, generally speaking, will go to college for 4 years unless you have a full year. And IB diploma does quite often actually give you a full year of credit in many universities. But it also gets you into college. So for instance, in Princeton, if you're a full IB diploma candidate, you have a 50% higher chance of getting into Princeton than their non-IB diploma applicants. Overall, 6% of applicants get into Princeton. If IB diploma candidates, 12% get into Princeton. So there actually you've improved your chances 100%, excuse me. And that's just one example. There are many, many colleges. The average number is between 33 and 50% increase. So there is a great value there, and we're promoting that. And then in terms of the full IB diploma to students, students aren't necessarily interested in that except in a very conceptual way. They're interested in other things like, this will help me manage my time so that I can enjoy my college experience, which is what the testimonials from our graduates consistently state. And so we promote the IB diploma in that way. And then, as a close, these are the recommendations. The 2 action steps would be awarding IBSL weighting to the junior research course and honors weighting to the 9th grade persuasive writing courses. We have both half credit courses. Are there any questions?
For the purposes of the transcript, for the junior research course, since that's going to be considered for the purposes of our district, an IBSL level, how would that be coded and put on the transcript?
I believe, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it says IB Junior Research on it now, and it has always said that. So it would be no change.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments on the board? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bryan. We have the Lisbon, yeah. Lisbon Internet Policy Services and License Agreement. Any Sarah? Any other questions from the board on that? That was presented. No discussion. Okay. We're moving to new business now. The first we have is the Special Education District Plan.
So, this is what I did. I asked Michelle to review, for the sake of the board, the requirements and the options that exist now for classified students with regard to diplomas. And then Pat is going to explain what aspect of this is different and has to be reflected in the district plan. So, Michelle?
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to discuss the local diploma options for students with disabilities. And there are 4 ways that students with disabilities can earn a local diploma in New York State. The first is that they achieve a local diploma for a student with a disability. The second is that they have an option of a low-pass safety net and appeal. The third is a compensatory safety net option, and the fourth is a superintendent's determination. Okay, so option number 1, which is the local diploma for students with disabilities. Students must get a 55 or better on 5 of the Regents exams. 1 must be the English Regents, 1 math, 1 science, 1 social studies, and 1 pathway. The pathway could be a variety of different means. It could be an additional math or science Regents exam, or it could be a certain score on an AP exam or an SAT subject test. There is an entire list from the state that's called Department Approved Alternatives that students can use for a pathway. They can also choose to meet the requirements for the CDOS's commencement credential. Option number 2, which is the low pass safety net and the appeal, which means that students can appeal scores between 52 and 54 on up to 2 Regents exams in any discipline. And if they do that, they can do this one of 2 ways. They can do 3 required Regents exams with a 55 or better, as similar to the previous slides, and 2 Regents exams with a score of 52 to 54, for which the appeal has been granted. And then I just listed out what that would look like in terms of the subjects. Or option 2 would mean that they have 2 required exams with a score of 55 or better, and 2 exams with a score of 52 to 54, for which an appeal has been granted. and then they could use their 5th Regents exam as the CDOS commencement credential. In order to qualify for an appeal, students must meet the following requirements. They must have taken the exam under appeal at least 2 times. This is a really important point when thinking about the process and thinking about how we move forward, because it does require that the students continue to prepare and take the Regents exams. There is no indication in the current regulation or yet in future regulation that students would be eligible for these options without taking and preparing for the exams as they would if they were trying to obtain a traditional advanced Regents or Regents diploma. The second point is that they must have presented evidence that they have attended extra help and prepared to take these exams under the appeal. They must also have passed the class, so if their exam under appeal is the English Regents, and they took the exam twice and they didn't pass it, they must have passed the class in order to be able to appeal that score. And then they have to receive a recommendation for exemption to graduation. And there is a committee that's involved, which includes the principal, other stakeholders such as the department chair, the English teacher, for example, and it goes through the appeal committee for the Regents exam. Option number 3 would be the compensatory safety net option. And this means that students can earn scores of 45 to 54 on any required Regents exam, except for English and math, and that could be compensated by a score of 65 or above on another exam. So although the local diploma for students with disabilities means that they have to achieve a 55 or above, if they are compensating one of their scores for another, as long as they have a 65 on one exam, then they can have a 45 to a 54 on another. And the option number 4, which is the superintendent's determination, which I know Pat is going to talk about, this is the newest option to students with disabilities, is that a student must have a current IEP. So for the prior 3, students could have an IEP or a 504 in order to qualify for those. But for the superintendent's determination, a student must have a current IEP. They must have passed all the required courses, including the Regents exams in the courses in English, math, science, social studies. They must have participated in all of the Regents exams. So again, they must have taken all of those Regents exams and not been successful in getting the minimum scores. And they must have completed the CDOS commencement credential. So for our students that's attending a BOCES program, that would qualify them to be able to have that commencement credential. Okay, a few other stipulations: they did not meet the graduation requirements through all of the other options. So a student who's really looking at a superintendent's determination is one that was not able to reach the benchmarks of the prior 3 options. So the benefits to these regulations is that students are able to graduate from high school with a high school diploma. These could have been students who, prior to these regulations, were not able to do that. And as we know, graduating from high school or leaving high school without a high school diploma really limits the students' options. So it gives them the option to leave high school with a high school diploma. Although a Regents diploma is preferred by college admissions departments, community college and some other institutions will accept students with a local diploma. And the local diploma is accepted by the armed forces, trade unions, and for entry-level job opportunities. So those are the benefits of the state offering these options to our students. So there are some disadvantages to a local diploma as opposed to a Regents diploma or advanced Regents diploma, which are important to note. Acceptance by four-year colleges is much less likely, and it's not necessarily because of the diploma type that the student achieves. It's more about the scores that the student is obtaining on a Regents exam. So if a student is looking at 55 on a Regents exam, then in the college admissions process, those students could be not considered college ready. And what that means is that the student could be required to pay for and take remedial classes that they are not getting credit for. And I just put a few statistics here from a 2016 U.S. Department of Education analysis report that shows that 73% of students placed in these types of remedial classes never end up earning college credit. and 78% of them never end up graduating. So the projection is not good for students who enter into college who are paying for remedial classes and aren't getting credit for those classes. So looking ahead, what we currently do is we prepare students for the advanced Regents and the Regents diploma. And what we do from there, if we're having a student who is struggling, we individualize our approach to them. We look at all of the options to see how we can get the students to have as many opportunities as possible upon graduating. Some of those things look like pulling students and having one-to-one certified TAs working with them, providing them extra help before school, after school, during school, to try to get them to obtain some of these options. And then the local diploma options still require, and I did talk about this earlier, that the student continue to participate and take all of the Regents exams. Question?
Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
I have a question. I know our school district currently has a policy that the Regents exam will be applied to the grade at 20%. If a student is receiving a 45 or 55, that'll definitely pull down their grade average. So I noticed in a few of the options they had to have passed the class. At what point is that Regents exam applied to their grade average? And would that, in essence, cause them to fail the class because of our policy?
Well, if I may, what we do with students who score that low on the Regents exam is, generally speaking, they're going to be, first of all, the grading, of course, is generally aligned to the Regents anyway. So if they're getting 48 on the Regents exam, they're probably not going to pass the course anyway without the Regents score counted. If in some case they do pass the course, then they pass the course. When they don't, they go for credit recovery in the summer anyway. And so the credit recovery enables them to do the work they need to do. And if they do all the work they need to do and they show proficiency in all those things, then the policy is that they pass the course with 65. So the application for Regents grade is somewhat obviated in that situation. So the kids are not disadvantaged. However, the goal is that they pass the Regents exam. And they have to sit for it twice anyway in order for these options to kick in.
Thank you. Dr. Griffin?
Thank you. So I think Michelle did an excellent job explaining about the update. I'll go back to the district plan. The district plan is required by the New York State Education Department, and it must be aligned with the Individuals for Disabilities Act, IDEA, and also the New York State Education Department Commissioners Part 200, 201 regulations. And it is approved by the Board of Education when changes are needed. We spoke about the addition of the local diploma safety net option for certain CSE students. And those options and the new option, the last option that we spoke about, for CSE students to earn a local diploma. So the next steps are the Board of Education reviews and approves the district plan. And if it is ever requested by the Commissioner of Education, the plan must be available for review. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the board? From the audience? Thank you to you both.
Thank you.
And now we're going to hear the required changes to the K-12 math curriculum. Ms. Faringa.
Good evening. It's now time to talk to everyone about math. I wish I could come up here and start doing math problems, but I was on my own.
That's okay.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit tonight about the changes that we'll be facing with the new next generation math learning standards. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the new standards, and then we'll kind of go into a timeline about how it impacts our district. I apologize for the double use of the word courses, but the new standards are, the high school standards are now listed by course. That's different than previously was. In the past, the standards were listed and said, this standard is identified to be in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, but did not identify which particular course that standard was addressed and to what limit was that standard addressed. This is much clearer. There are now coherence linkages that connect the standard from the grade that's in to the previous grade and the grade above. In the new standards, there are actually links that you can click on that if you're a first grade teacher, you can click on the coherence to show what the standard looked like in kindergarten, to see what the kids have learned, and then you can also click on the grade above to see where the kids are going with that particular skill. They clarify the standards, absolutely 100%. New standards were added to improve coherence. Standards were also moved between different grade levels to improve focus, coherence, and grade level appropriateness. Multiple standards were consolidated to alleviate redundancy. The greatest changes are in 6th grade, and a glossary of verbs was created to clarify expectations of student work. The glossary identifies the language in the standards for the teacher, so the teacher knows how to apply that particular standard. And I provided a link so you can get to those new standards. These standards were adopted by the Board of Regents in Mathematics and PLA this past fall. I'm going to talk a little bit now about when, the timeline of that implementation. First at the K through 8 level. So Common Core was adopted and implemented in the district back in 2012, 2013, and was implemented over time until we get to the last couple of years. In 2015 to 17, the state tests were 3 days. They changed it to unlimited time, and they started to reduce the number of test items. Those tests were 100% aligned to the Common Core learning standards, and curriculum revisions occurred throughout the summer after the instruction took place, modifications, and we go back and reteach. In this past fall, the Next Generation Math Standards were adopted, and the state decided to make some changes to the state test. The changes to those state tests are rather important, so I wanted to share them. The tests are now 2 days instead of 3. They removed extraneous information from test items. They also eliminated the negative questions from those tests. Another thing is that the tests are written to a lexile of 2 grades below the test being graded. Some of my colleagues around the county were test item writers, and when they were writing the test items, this is what they were informed to do, to write the test items to as lexile that was 2 grades lower than they're currently at, to give access to students where it doesn't become a reading test as much and more of a math test. Again, curriculum revisions will take place over the summer, and we did start to look at the new standards that are coming up. We don't know what the changes to the state test will be next year. That we can't foresee, but the state, as we know, have been surprising us every year. Unlimited time, changing the number of test items, removing the sample questions. We will look at curriculum revisions over the summer. Specifically, we have to start looking at the materials that we are currently using to see if they're aligned to these new standards. So in 2019, 2020, we can start to implement soft implementations of those next generation learning standards. We have to research and look at our materials to make sure they are curricularly aligned, so that we can do those curriculum changes in the summer of 2020. We will continue with professional development throughout the school year, because in 2020, 2021 is when the full implementation of the next generation math standards will be implemented and tested. They will be tested across all grades. They are not implementing them one grade at a time. And the reason for that is that the changes aren't really that massive. They're really not the same way when we went to the Common Core standards. What they really did with the next generation math standards is they really kind of tweaked the standards. They left the math practice standards alone. They repackaged it and gave it a different name. The changes are not that significant. 6th grade has a little bit of work to do with some professional development, but other than that, the changes are not as drastic. So that's K through 8. At the high school level, the Regents exams in 2015-16 was the second year of the Common Core Alpha 1 Regents, the first year of geometry, and we were looking at curriculum revisions. Then the last school year, when that previously took place, was the third year of Alpha 1, second year of geometry, and it was the first true administration of the Common Core Algebra 2 Regents exam. We continued doing curriculum revisions over the summer, and we continued with professional development throughout the school year. I just want to note that the current graduating class, the class of 2018, is the first graduating class in Locust Valley that took all 3 of the Common Core Regents exams. It is the first graduating class to sit through all 3 of those particular tasks. In the current year, we're in full implementation of Common Core Regents curriculum, and again, we're still doing curriculum revisions through the summer, and professional development continues. Moving forward, very similar to the K through 8, it's status quo in the 2018-2019 school year. Is when it's not until we get to 2019-2020 that we have to start looking at the materials that we have in class. We have to start looking at the alignment to the new standards. We have to look to see if the lessons and our assessments adhere to those curricular changes. We will continue with curriculum revisions through the summer and professional development on the new standards, because in 2020-2021, from the state, quote unquote, the Regents exams will be aligned to the new standards no sooner than 2020-2021. They have not come out and said specifically for certain that that is going to be the first year of implementation, but we can't wait for that to happen and for them to say one thing or another, so we have to be ready. In addition, the state also came out and has said that there will be no double testing. When Common Core, the Regents Common Core came out, we had double testing in the beginning of June. The students sat for one test, then they would take the other test. And the reason, again, for the no double testing is because the alignment between the Common Core standards and the next generation learning standards is very slight. It's not so significant where they have to do double testing. And again, we will continue with professional development. Interestingly enough, with the adaptation of Common Core and the next generation learning standards, all of what we just talked about in the K through 8 program and these Regents courses are aligned to AP and IB expectations, as well as SAT and ACT expectations, and they were not removed from changes. So just so that you are aware, for the SAT, they have they reduced the number of test items. They also reduced the number of answers in the multiple choice section from 5 down to 4. But more importantly, the questions were written to college and career readiness level. If you ask a student that took the SAT before the changes, it would tell you that it was a lot easier because there was a lot less reading to do. The ACT also has experienced some changes, although they were not publicized. The test now covers a broader spectrum of advanced mathematics. There is a list here for you to read. I think getting into the mathematics would be quite tedious, but they were rewriting the test items so that way they would render the calculator useless. They would give you a calculator, but we're going to write the questions in such a way that it's not going to help as a tool. IB changes are coming, and this is something significant that we have to be ready for and waiting for. IB has come out with documentation that they are changing the course structure of the SL program. They will have, in 2019, in the spring, will come out with a new course guides. So we do not have that yet. There's the two new courses, there's a mathematics, analysis, and approaches, and the other course will be applications and interpretations, which is the studies. So we have not yet seen the course outlines for those particular courses, so we cannot foresee what kind of changes that they're going to be, that we're talking about. They could be significant changes to those courses. In the summer of 2019 will be the major curriculum writing project. We'll start to implement some of those changes in the 2019 school year with final revisions in the 2020 summer. For the 2020-21 school year, which is the same as the other ones, is the first assessment of the new courses. The other major change in IB is the further math, which is our top level course that we had offered, will cease to exist as of 2019. They are eliminating that course completely. AP Calculus has also been impacted by all these changes. The curriculum framework now follows an understanding by design structure, replace the topic outlines. No topics were removed, but content has been added. So they added a couple of little things, little details, like comparison, additional conversions, those are fun things. The distribution of questions and the timing of the questions. What makes the AP test more challenging is the timing of the test. So now they have modified that so that the relative timing of the multiple choice sections is more balanced. What we talking about, the numerator, denominator, denominator goes to 0.
Got it.
No
It
problem.
looks like French, actually.
It is, what we call this one. Yes. And that is my presentation in a nutshell. I could talk all night about them, but this is just the first of the changes that will start happening in the 2019-2020 school year. So this is like the precursor of when things will be coming.
Curriculum, so K-8 curriculum, what are we currently using?
We are currently using in K through 5, we're using the Go Math. And then in the middle school, we're using the Big Ideas, which is from the same publisher, which follows the Big Ideas from the Go Math.
So I'm assuming we'll probably have to change that to new standards.
Well, we're going to have to look to see the alignment of what we are using to those new standards. And then if we don't want to happen what happened in the past. Back in the day when Envisions was putting out their program, the Pearson Visions, and Common Core came out, they put a sticker on the front cover that said Common Core, and then they handed everyone an addendum and said, oh, here, follow this adjustments and all this. We have to really look at the alignment of what we are currently using to those new standards. But again, that wouldn't take place until 2019-2020 school year. Correct.
The good thing is they shouldn't really be changing much, right? What is that, 6th grade?
Yeah, 6th grade really, it has a lot of statistics, data, measures central tendency.
I was just going to say that thank you so much. And the same for you and for all the academic, traditional academic leaders, because it's not enough to try to decipher what the state wants and when it wants it to align the curriculum. It's also trying to align the curriculum with college-level courses simultaneously so that the transitions are gradual and appropriate. So it's overlapping, in some cases, 3 different curricula, and then moving them. So it's the state curriculum, and then you have AP, and then you have IB with the variations, speaking mathematically, that exist. So thank you so much. I mean, it looks simpler, I know, than it is. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you very much. And now we have a discussion on the proposed 2018-2019 Locust Valley School District calendar, the 18-19 school year.
Tony? This year for her was easy. Usually it's a nightmare, but this one was an easy.
Hi, the calendar draft was presented to all the presidents of the bargaining units and to members of the parent council groups, all of the officers. We solicited feedback and developed a calendar that is accepted by everyone, and that's in section E of your board packet.
Anyone in the audience want a copy of the proposed calendar? Go back up on the stage. Yes, you would like a copy? Sure. We're gonna go back up. Oh, we have to come back to this. We have to stay down here. No, we have to stay down here because we have the last presentation, facilities. I know. Well, please at the table. Do we have copies? Can I ask you a question? I just want to understand this, and I've never really taken the opportunity to look and examine the calendar. How many days are required by New York State of instruction?
180 days are required.
That's all. 180 days. What happens when we have a snow day? Or two, which it says there are 2 days built in. So that would, we have 2 snow days.
We have the 2 superintendent conference days that are built into our calendar. It's actually 180 plus 2 superintendent conference days. So we have 2 built in. If we use over those 2 days, we have listed at the bottom of the calendar the first day's holiday days off that we lose. There's usually an extra day in Memorial Day weekend. And if we had to, which I don't think we've had in the past couple of years, we start backing into the April, the spring recess. But we haven't had to do that the past couple of years. Okay.
Any other questions on the proposed school calendar? No? Anyone? Ms. Hammerschmidt is making copies, so we'll come back to this so people can take a look, and we can revisit it. Where are we now? Jump ahead.
What are we waiting for?
The copies to come down. That's what we're waiting for. Trustee Bruno. There we go. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the 18-19 school year? No. Okay, we're going to move on to the next order of business, which is the 2018-19 facility priorities. I'm going to do this one with the superintendent. We had a, we need a slideshow.
There it is. That's it.
Okay, so these are the projects. We had a facilities committee meeting. The committee has been meeting regularly since the beginning of the school year and has discussed many safety issues, concerns that we have with our facilities. We held a facilities forum on February the 1st where we extensively presented some of these items, or all the items to be considered. What you see there are the dollar amounts that are estimated by H2M. These are just very large estimates. I'm just going to go through the projects again. For Bayville Locust Valley Elementary Schools, we have the Bayville Intermediate Septic Replacement, which is estimated at $460,000. At Bayville Primary School, an addition of an adaptive playground, $160,000. Bayville Primary, the gym roof replacement, $190,000. Over here at Locust Valley Intermediate, will be a retaining wall replacement and driveway widening just outside at $450,000. And across the street at Ann MacArthur Primary, parking lot expansions, $780,000 to expand that parking lot. One of the things that came up at the forum that we had was a concern regarding the arrival and dismissal here at the elementary school. We're looking to make necessary improvements in the interest of safety for students and staff. Okay, at the high school, middle school facility, the middle school partial roof replacement at $1,200,000. It's going to be done in 2 phases. This will be phase 1. Also, the necessity of this replacement would be for the energy bond, where we'll have the panels, the solar panel installation. So before they can be installed, the roof will have to be replaced. High school, the testing room, estimated $254,000. The high school, the band room, air conditioning, is the new band room, that is estimated $225,000. The reason for this is the windows are located extremely high. The room gets very hot, and we're looking for, again, it's the safety of the students that occupy that room. The high school, middle school cafeteria serving line equipment replacement, $380,000. There are steam trays located in there where students can get burned. Again, safety. And the last is the middle school phase 2 of the electrical improvements, $420,000. That would include replacement of the circuit breakers, the aged circuit breakers in the building. So what we're looking to do tonight, the facilities committee, as I said, we haven't met as a committee. Last time we met was the end of January. We did have our forum February 1st. In order to get some of these projects started, there is a process, and part of that process is to go before the New York State Education Department. What we would do is make application to the State Ed Department. The State Ed Department reviews the plans, they go over the architect drawings, and then they'll come back with an improvement, with them to be approved, and that will allow us to start the construction. The other thing is we'd like H2M, our engineering firm, to come back with renderings, to come back with more precise pricing. These prices over here, we'd like to see them as tight as possible in the interest of forming the budget for next year. That's part of the process as well. So tonight, in our consent agenda, we're recommending that we move forward. It's not a definite, but it's at least moving in a forward direction to get these items through to H2M so we can get more precise prices and engineering renderings back, so we can take a look at that. Anything you want to add to this? No? Okay. This is a discussion item, so I'll open it up to the Board of Education. Is there any discussion from the members of the board? Okay. Any discussion from the community? Paul?
Thank you, Brian. My questions are in essence about the dollar amounts. What do we currently have in our budget line for facility priorities or capital improvements, or what lines do these fall on?
Okay. Facilities improvements would come under the interfund transfers, and currently we have 900,000 in there, and then the reserves. And the reserve, capital reserve right now, Tony, a little over 9 million is what she's saying. But it's a good point, an implication that what the president just reviewed are possible projects. These add up to $40.5 million. And so as part of the budget process, then the board will have to consider the level of funding for these for next year, and that's yet to be determined as part of the budget process. But currently, we have 900,000 in there, and there has not been an amount specified for an increase to that, nor a drawdown of reserves. And both would need authorization by the board and then approval by the voters.
I believe that Public Budget Forum 2 will cover finance, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The other is, what is the estimated cost to prepare the renderings and all of that that we need from H2M and ultimately for state planning?
And where does that fall under? Tony, do you want to answer?
It really depends on the project. It depends on the individual project, what the renderings cost.
In other words, so for example, the partial roof replacement is not going to cost a great deal at all because they already have worked on that. On the other hand, the testing room. The testing room is a different situation altogether, and they're going to have to finalize that. They include well, it's really actually a separate issue. We can't know, and they can't know until they actually do the research that's necessary as to what it's going to cost. For example, the Locust Valley retaining wall is going to require borings before the specifications are finalized that will in fact be reflected. It's actually reversed, the renderings and the specifications, but it's a more complicated undertaking. And so they won't know until they do it. When we did the septic remediation at middle school, high school, we started off thinking one thing, and then it became a much bigger undertaking because there was contaminated soil. So that's why Tony's saying it would be really hard to anticipate. But there is no way to get the answers without authorizing them to proceed.
The reason that I asked is I'm just finding it very hard to authorize or to be able to authorize going forward when we have a list of over $4 million worth of projects and we know that we have a $900,000 line. I realize that we have reserves, but we know we need to be researching and working with the community on gaining support for that or possibly a bond. So I don't know how we can make that determination that we want to consider and spend money to further research these projects. I I know that we've asked for a breakdown of how we've gotten even to the estimates of this. That would help me to have understood that. I think that's why the facilities committee had even asked for that information. I'm finding it very difficult to be able to say that I could support this at this moment in time without knowing, I haven't even seen any of the hundreds and hundreds of budget lines that we have, what we're looking at. Well, I don't know if I'm setting us up, possibly curriculum instruction programs, I have no idea, because I haven't had a chance to get that far and understand as a board member what the budget's going to look like, or what we're going to be pursuing as options for even funding this. And to spend, we have some warrants that are for drawing up whatever was required for the work at hand, DP Terrazzo and other places. And that was quite a bit of money if we multiply it by all these projects that we may not even consider for next year. I don't know if that's how I want to go fiscally.
I'm very comfortable with these projects. I mean, I've been on the board now for 3 years. When we last looked at a bond, that was my thinking, that was my lens. My lens was, what are we doing for safety, security of students and staff? I'm very happy with these projects. I'd like to see it move on so that we can get the renderings we need, that we can get the prices that we need, so that we can start building a precise budget for our taxpayers. So that's where I am. That's where my thinking is. I'll open it up to any other board members that have questions or comments.
No. I agree with Brian. I think we're presented with this list of priorities that can be accomplished by the fall. Other projects that are on the list will take much longer, and we should proceed forward with what we have to do. It's a shame that the facilities committee was not able to meet before tonight to solidify and bring this to conclusion. But I think by moving forward and doing this resolution, we'll be able to get some of the renderings and get going on this so that we can get them completed by the fall.
Yeah, admittedly, I'm having trouble seeing these get done because of the renderings. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around without seeing itemization. I'll say that. I do support that. I am comfortable with these projects. I think the facilities committee's done a great job narrowing down. These are mostly for security. Again, I would like to emphasize, I would like to know a little bit more, be more comfortable. But I do understand that if we have to move forward, that's when we'll get a better understanding. But thank you.
I'm very comfortable moving forward. We've never asked, looked at into these minute details. We always put our faith in the administrators to do the right thing. Actually, I don't think it's up for discussion. And in the past, we have done $15 million worth of projects in a responsible way, where we've drawn the reserves, replenished. Voters have voted for projects, most of which we were at the discretion of the district, not the board choosing projects, like boilers and things like that, because they knew better. I'm perfectly comfortable with, proceeding tonight, because it's already been dragging on for a very long time.
Before I go to John, I know that at the last, it wasn't the last committee meeting, but we did ask Anna for if there's any way we can see how these are broken down. So if maybe you could follow up with H2M. I think that's a really good point that you made, and I think that's necessary.
Their response, I did ask. I asked repeatedly, and I think I wrote it to the board actually. Their response was that the estimates that they give are based on a general impression of what they've seen without the specific information and without being authorized to pursue the specific information. They are indicating they cannot give detailed information. So I apologize if that wasn't clear in my communication.
We get that. going forward?
You have to get it, once you give this authorization, for them to submit application to the state ed department, they have to have in detail what they plan to do. And so, we'll do two things at once like we usually do. And so they'll prepare it and then get it to you simultaneous to when they're submitting, so you'll be kept abreast all along. But they couldn't do it until they were authorized to do it. And credit to the facilities committee that in fact we started off with a much longer list. And the committee was so dedicated to being fiscally responsible, they did not authorize that detailed specs be drawn and renderings on projects that they knew could not be completed. These are the projects and the only projects that can be completed. And it's a much smaller list than what the board started off with to the committee's credit.
You also just comment, this is not the cut list of that's it.
No.
All the stuff on there is gone. It's just for planning purposes.
Because it cannot be done
By the fall of 2018 are the projects you see here. The other stuff, the other items that we were considering are not off the table. They're just not projects that can be completed for the fall of 2018.
And it also does not obligate the board, once that they have more information and once that they see the budget numbers, that in fact, they could say that, I doubt that the board would be able to say that they're funding all of them, but they could choose to fund anything up to that amount, which I think would probably be unlikely given the budget impact.
Ridiculous. It's going to be
Dr. Hunterman, can the facilities committee meet and finalize everything before we go out to H2M to tell them to do the renderings? The whole board, so the earliest we can meet to go in front of the whole board for a vote is when? March 15th?
The 22nd.
March 22nd.
Because, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to speak loudly, that, no, it's okay. The reserves have to be authorized, Susan, right? Where is she? Over there. The 22nd would allow the time that's necessary for it to appear on the ballot. Yes, and so, yes, and so that's when it has to happen, because if not, you won't be able, the board, if the board chooses to draw down reserves and the authorization is not given then the appropriate public notices would not be issued in a timely and legal manner. I hope I answered your question, John. Yeah.
Could there be a special meeting for this and invite the public?
It's always up to the discretion of the board. Always, you can call a special meeting anytime you like. The meeting on the 22nd, just a point of information, will be public. Has to be public.
The timeline is very tight.
Well, I'll say this, it's really up to the will of the board. The drawdown, the authorization for the reserve drawdown.
There's other ways to get the money.
There is.
So that's what we should tell the public.
Correct, and I think I explained it previously, but it's good to review it. There are three ways that the board can fund capital improvements. One is through a bond. A second is through a drawdown of reserves. And the third is through the capital budget appropriation, also known as the inter-fund transfer. The inter-fund transfer will be, I know, will be part of the budget discussions through the budget forms that will precede the 22nd, because the board, I know, will want to know how much they're authorizing for capital appropriation in the budget, and then come to the conclusion as to what it is that they want to do. There's been some discussion in finance, but I know it has not been finalized with regard to the drawdown of reserves. So it will be discussed in public at those public budget forums.
One week after that to make a decision.
Right.
Is it 1 week?
7th to the 22nd, of course.
I thought it was the 7th.
Yeah, right. And that doesn't preclude the committee, either committee, from meeting facilities or finance, or the board calling a special meeting that's at the will of the board.
And that would have to be publicized.
Of course, of course.
Part of what you just explained, Brian, would help me with some clarity. My apprehension actually comes from the language within our consent agenda, and it made me feel as if we were approving these capital projects. So, as I see it as two things, it literally reads, the superintendent recommends that the board approve the list of 2018, 2019 capital project priorities as submitted, and authorizes H2M to prepare detailed renderings, specs, final estimates, etc. I certainly believe that we need to get renderings in order to understand the priorities further and what's required to submit into the project. It's the first portion which made me feel as if the board is authorizing us to move forward with those as our capital project.
Move the list, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and the list has $4-something million worth of projects. That's a portion of this consent agenda item that I'm having difficulty in moving forward with. Having not.
Is there another way we can?
Well, we have legal counsel sitting with us, never thinking it's going to be put on the spot. And so this is John Gross, and so that'll teach you to get your ruling. Anyway. So can you help so that in fact this can be phrased in a way where they're approving H2M to pursue the renderings and the specs, but they're not giving final approval? Okay. He's organized.
Thanks, John.
If I could just ask, I'm a little bit confused. Are the projects that we're seeing on the board for the $4.5 million, are we saying that those are going to be completed in this year? All of these projects, or that is pending finalization from H2M?
Correct. And those are the only projects that we're aware of that could be completed by the fall of 2018 with minimal distractions and disruptions to the education process. We're trying to get a lot of it done over the summer when there's digging going on.
Right. And do I understand correctly that we have no way of knowing what H2M is charging for the renderings because each project is different and they also do not work with a not-to-exceed figure?
It's just, there would not be a way to say what the limit would be since each one is different, like the example that I gave before. With the septic system at the middle school, high school.
I'm just drawing from personal experience. Building out a facility, and I have a not-to-exceed figure from my architect, a not-to-exceed figure from my engineer, and a not-to-exceed figure from my contractor. So I'm confused as to how much do we pay H2M?
It depends.
Are they contracting for specific ones?
Yeah, they have last year. You go around. But let me ask you one other thing about this, because and I understand it gets confusing. What the board is authorizing tonight is for additional information to be gleaned. That's what the board is authorizing. They are not authorizing all of these projects to be approved and to pursue them. That is subject to their review of what H2M recommends. Yeah, recommends to them or shares with them. So H2M is not making the determination. So the board has two things that have to happen. One is they have to finalize
the projects of those, I mean, theoretically, there could be none, I would doubt that that would be the case, but theoretically, from nothing to the 4.5 million, I don't think that they would approve something that's not on there because of what Brian explained, which is that they are the projects from that long list that can in fact be completed. Other projects, even though they're needed and may be considered by the board next year, or some of these reconsidered, cannot be completed by the fall, the additional ones. So the board is authorizing H2M to work on the renderings, work on the specifications, get ready to file with state ed so that they don't lose the opportunity to do this. Because if there are delays, then some of these projects will not be completed by the fall. And then, once that information is given to the board will determine two things. One is which projects, if any, they will in fact authorize for and fund. That's the authorization part. Because no one can grant that authorization but the board. Oh, John, this is the answer.
Can I just go to a resident first? John, Kirk.
I'm also on this rendering situation. For example, we're looking at a high school roof replacement, $1.2 million. I mean, do we need a rendering for that? So is there in the past, what percent of that 4.5 million has typically been the cost of these renderings in other projects, whether it's 4.5 or whether it's 10%, 5%? What is that number? It seems like we've got to do something better than shooting in the dark and hoping to hit something. And this is what, in essence, you're suggesting.
Well, they have a flat fee, Tony.
There's a percentage fee on the whole capital project, on projects that are submitted to the state. From $250,000 to $1 million, it ranges between 6 and 6.5%. That's on the whole project. That includes everything. But there are different hourly rates. Some projects are not all submitted for state approval. Some are maintenance projects. So you can have an hourly rate for a design consultant. You can have an hourly rate for a safety engineer, a chemical expert. They have different people that have different rates depending on what's required. Some of the jobs have more safety issues. Some of them have chemical issues. Some of them don't. They're just design issues.
I get it. And we can't put a cap on that?
It
seems like it's a common thing in the construction industry and in the architect industry. When I hire an architect to do a project, we cap it. We say, your budget is this.
Well, if there is a capital project, the fee is based on the cost. We have not written contracts with the not to exceed. I don't believe that I've seen that ever here.
We built the bridge on a contract not to exceed.
Yeah, it's absurd. It is absolutely absurd.
When we did go out to, on the RFP for architects, I didn't see any proposals that included not to exceed.
Can we ask for that?
Well, I guess next time we go out for a proposal, I guess we could.
No, specifically on this, can we ask?
I would have to have a discussion. We could ask.
We not get the right answer, but we can ask the question.
Mhm.
Okay.
I know.
Hi, Gabrielle Harrington, representing the LDSEA. I had the privilege to sit at the last is it the finances committee? Okay. I just want to go back to something that Sarah said. She said that she doesn't have enough information in terms of the budget. And my understanding was that the board was going to receive a line-by-line budget by last Friday. So I don't understand how that's not part of this. So, last Friday was Friday. So did that not happen? Does the board not have that? Did Sarah not get it? I don't understand.
The finance committee got a copy of it.
But not the rest of the board?
Not yet.
Okay, so couldn't the finance committee give more information about this?
There is only one line in the budget that would actually affect this, and that's the transfer to capital line that Anna talked about. That was $900,000 in last year's budget. There aren't any other budget lines that would really affect the capital project. It's just that one that was mentioned.
But I don't.
What's the question?
The question is, I think she was saying, how does it affect the entire budget? I want to see the whole thing and see what we've paid in the past, or see what's been going on, see what we've been, that's what I heard. And I heard last week that you guys were going to have that information before you went forward.
I have no idea.
I heard John ask for a line-by-line budget.
Having nothing to do with this, though.
Yes, everything that you were talking about with this was saying we have to finalize the finances so we needed to know exactly what facilities improvements needed to be done so that finances could be finalized. That was the conversation, I was a witness.
The only budget line is the 900,000, because the rest is going to be funded through.
Well, that's a lot more than $900,000, Jessica.
Withdrawing money out, which is not an item in the budget.
That's a lot more than $900,000, Erica.
That's a
So-
budget item, but then there's the money you draw down from the
Okay, so I
reserve.
think,
You can get it three ways, Gabby. She told you. You can get it draw down, right?
Right.
You can do a bond, or you.
And the 9 plus the
And you have
900,000.
the 900,000 in the capital budget.
I could clarify my statement if you would like. My statement came from the fact that, in essence, overall, for the whole entire budget, the most that we can increase the budget without going out for a super majority vote is by 2%.
Correct.
So I was looking at $4.5 million. So this is where I'm clarifying my statement. So I'm looking at $4.5 million and hearing that the line item is 900,000, and which of those did we want to be adding into that line, or how much money would this one line be increasing? And in essence, I'm wondering, whatever that additional dollar amount might be over the 900,000, how will that affect the overall 2%? So if indeed a good chunk of our 2% from our budget were to be eaten up and incorporated into capital line, then how does that affect the other lines that may need to be increased under curriculum instruction, under teaching? And I wouldn't know that because I haven't seen those other lines to know if we need to increase something in textbooks or something in busing or whatever our lines are. We have hundreds of lines, and I haven't seen our budget to even know what is being proposed or thought of for that. So it wasn't just a one-line item.
The 2% tax cap applies to the operational part of the budget. Whatever you want to increase for capital, you could actually get dollar to dollar into your tax levy. They don't work against each other. Whatever you add to your capital budget increases your allowable tax levy. So if you added $100,000 to your capital, transfer to capital, you would pick up $100,000 in your maximum allowable tax levy. The 2% limit really applies to the operating budget without any capital items. So you don't really take from that part if you increase your capital.
And is that even with the governor's new proposed cap on
state expense-based fees, because that's capital.
Yes, it has nothing, the capital stands alone.
I just want to introduce John Gross from Ingram & Smith, who's our labor counsel for the district.
But apparently tonight, construction. I was going to read the resolution modified, which I think will answer some of the questions. 2018-19 facility priorities. The superintendent recommends that the board approve submission of the list of 2018-19 capital project priorities to H2M to prepare rendering specifications and final estimates in a form for subsequent submission to New York State Education Department, adhering to a calendar that ensures that board-approved projects are completed by the fall of 2018, subject to review and approval of the projects prior to submission to the New York State Education Department, subject further to board approval of the method of funding said projects. I think that reserves to the board the concerns and approval.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the audience? In the back? John's going to have to reread it again. You go to vote on it.
You want me to read it?
I can read Attorney Brennan.
All right. Let's go back to the agenda. All right, then that concludes the new business section. And we can now move into the next order of business if we go back up onto the stage. All right, so we're now going to go into the consent agenda under tonight's agenda. There is a change to the consent agenda, as was just read by Mr. Gross, which will change item 4 on the end there on the facility priorities. And that will be as read earlier. All right, are there any questions on any items on the consent agenda that any board member would like to discuss? Does your microphone work? Trustee Hennis.
Was regarding enclosure 7C5. I think that's the easier way to say it. to the C Financial, item 5, consultant services contracts. It mentioned that a copy of the contract would be provided, and I'm wondering, is the cover sheet the actual contract? Because it didn't seem like that.
Tony, can you just hand her the cover so she knows what we're referring to? Yeah, just need a mic.
That's what I'm thinking, probably here, Pat's.
It has to do with American Sign Language?
Yes, that's a
Okay.
consultant to provide transition services.
You have to speak into the mic because no one will hear you.
Yes, that's a consultant to provide transition services. The contract was submitted.
But it wasn't attached, I think is what, it was not attached, is Sarah's point. Yes. Traditionally, the contracts have not been attached, right? Usually not. It's kind of.
I just see it's a resolution for approval, where it says that the contract was attached. It just says that I recommend that the contract with line interpreting be attached to the resolution below for approval at the upcoming Board of Education meeting. So I just thought that it would be there to see, so I knew what we were. The services, we need for the student plan, obviously. What is included in the service?
I guess this was the inclusion, the enclosure describes the services.
I don't think that's the point. I think that what Sarah's saying is that she was looking for the contract. That's not your doing. That's what Brian and I were saying, that traditionally that's not the way it's been done. Doesn't mean it can't be done that way, but that's just not the way it's been done. So it's not an oversight by anyone. It's just that it's not been done. It could be, sure.
That would be fine, I just, with it saying that it was attached, want to be able to approve it.
No, I have it right here.
Just that sorry. The last is about the request for proposals for the various maintenance services. Oh, yeah, C7. I was just wondering, do we have past RFPs for any of these services? And did we?
They were all done 4 years ago, and they were like in times for that year we have to review the fiscal year. So that term is expiring for all of those services, which is why we have to do them all again.
Anything else? Any other members of the board have anything that they want to discuss on the consent agenda? Okay, there being being none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented with the change to that last one, read off by John Gross. Motion by Vice President Carlstrom. Second, Trustee Del Tato. Any further questions? All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Okay, I don't believe there's any other public comments tonight. I'd like to then, before we move, let's say, entertain a motion for executive session. Tonight, to convene the executive session in order to discuss a confidential matter pertaining to the employment conditions of a particular person's contract. If any action is to be taken, it will be done in public session. The Board of Education will act in accordance with the law. We have a motion to go into executive session. Trustee Hennis, second, Trustee Bruno. All in favor? John? Thank you. Okay. It's unanimous. The board will now go into executive session. I just want to announce that the next board meeting will be March the 22nd, and that will be at high school. At high school. There also is a public budget forum number 2, which is going to be March the 7th. March the 7th. And that is also at Locust Valley High School, Middle School, High School. So we're going to go to executive session. Thank you everyone for coming.